Yo, what's up guys? We're back at it again with another video. It's going to be a One Piece chapter live reaction. We're doing chapter 1190. Guys, it's super hype. We are so close to chapter 1200. I don't know how long you guys have been One Piece fans for, but me personally, I've been reading and watching One Piece for pretty regularly at this point for, man, probably over a decade. I think I've been reading it since my sophomore or junior year of high school, which was at least 8 years ago. Actually, I lied. It's more like 9 years ago at this point. Yeah, so I've been reading One Piece for about a decade now, and which is pretty crazy to say, honestly. Almost half as long as I've been alive, I've been reading One Piece. Um, we're really close to 1200. And chapter 1000 was super hype. Chapter 1100 was still, I don't actually know exactly what happened. But Oda likes to try to lay down fun stuff at these milestones. And with what all is going on right now in Elbaf, guys, I'd find it hard to believe that chapter 1200 is not going to be something pretty gnarly. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But it really is just crazy to see that we're almost at chapter 1200. It's absolutely nuts. Truly crazy. One Piece is just great. We have a really cool cover page this week, though. It's just Shanks and young Luffy in Windmill Village. Shanks is grilling up some fish outside, and some cats are pulling up on him. Pretty cool. The chapter is titled One Whose Death is Celebrated. Honestly, guys, it's a really dope chapter. It's mostly just all action. It's pretty much exactly where we picked up. No breaks, not going anywhere else. It's just solid, exactly where we were, which was Imu and Scopper throwing down. So Scopper blocked Imu's attack like we saw in the last chapter while also cutting the big branch that Luffy was stuck on, right? So he kind of cut it off into multiple segments. So now Luffy is falling down from where he was, so he's not exactly right in front of Imu pinned up on a branch. He's now still in the same area, but he is more or less free. After a second, Imu actually withdraws his swords, and we don't see them ever go back into the void, but I'm pretty certain that's what happens, is they probably just disappear when they fly back up, and then I believe he just pulls them back to him. But we see Imu try to hit Scopper. Scopper actually dodges his attack, and it makes a comment as to how hideous Imu is, and that he doesn't even look like he's from this world. Imu's confused by that statement, especially saying this world specifically, implying he knows a lot about the world and its history. That makes Imu respond like, "Who are you?" And that's actually Scopper's response as someone who understands the world. After seeing the strength and honestly like this level of like elegance almost with Scopper handling Imu like this, Imu just kind of lets him land. Imu walks over to Luffy, or rather Scopper walks over to Luffy while Imu's just watching. And Scopper just lays into Luffy, giving him a really great speech about how pathetic he honestly is. He tells him to get up, and tells him he's a disappointment, and that if an old man has to come and save his ass, he should have shame. That's just pathetic. So you've become an emperor, you've got some white form. Big deal, you're just getting cocky again. Luffy just keeps complaining about how he's hurting. Scopper asks if he wants to die here. Luffy says, yeah, I'm not going to die. Of course not. Scopper says, well, you might as well just die. You're pathetic. Do you know what'll happen now if you croak? We actually get a good panel of Luffy where he looks very serious. We could tell how bad of shape he is in. And he says, I won't be able to save my friend's home, as we get a wide shot to see all of Elbaf. So that's really cool. Well, I'm waiting to see if this is going to be one of his friends' homes that he can't protect. This would be like the first one where he could not protect their home at all. Scopper says, and then what's going to happen to your crew? And Luffy says they'll be in danger. Scopper says, that's right. When you rise up in the sea, the number of enemies targeting you will only increase. The King of the Pirates is a title reserved for one whose death is celebrated because everyone's gunning for that throne. If any part of you still thinks that becoming the King of the Pirates is going to be a stroll in the park, then go home now. If you're not cut out for this, you're just in the way, you stupid brat. As he chucks Luffy off into the distance. Luffy gets mad, talking some trash about Scopper, as we then see Scopper use his Praying Mantis plume attack against Imu, which Imu blocks, I'd say, with ease. Imu asks, like, was that like a joke, that whole thing? Like, you're acting like you're mad and like you're pissed off at him, but then you're still here to protect him? Like, what was that, some joke? And Scopper says, well, you want to kill him, right? Imu says, yeah, I do. Scopper says, that's because he reminds you of Joy Boy, huh? That's when Imu gets confused, and he pulls out a new sword we haven't seen before called the Honbami Toshiro, which is apparently called the Bone Eater, is what it translates to roughly. He asks Scopper what does he know, and Scopper directly tells him, I learned from Joy Boy's own words. And he says he's not trying to chase after a person from the past who he's never met, being Joy Boy or Emu himself, but rather he's just here to see his captain's dream come true. Emu's confused and actually begins to cough up blood for the first time, I believe, since he landed and was doing it. So his timer's probably running out, is what we've all been thinking. He probably has a timer. He can only stay on the surface for so long based on what the Gorosei had said. And if that's the case, his timer is definitely starting to run lower. We get a cut back to Luffy where he's just trying to heal, and then Scopper continues on after Emu asks, so who is your captain then? The king of the pirates, Gol D. Roger. And then we actually get a cut back to back when Roger was called the king of the pirates, and we get what Emu said about it. He said, this is distasteful. Why is a D being called the king of pirates? Do not let his name spread any further. Clearly, that command did not go as he wanted, and the reason that probably bothers him is because the first pirate was Joy Boy, right? And, actually, the first pirate, was it Joy Boy? No, or was it Davy? I think it was Joy Boy was the first pirate, if I remember correctly. But odds are Joy Boy also carries D in his name, so I don't know why he's so shocked that the king of the pirates, so not the first pirate, but the king of the pirates is also a D. But Emu continues on and says, that's right, the one who ushered in this golden age of piracy, and why would the former crewmate of Roger protect Straw Hat Luffy? And Scopper gives him a pretty matter-of-fact response. Well, because you're trying so hard to kill him. Doesn't that explanation seem pretty obvious to you? When you declare a kid like that a threat, eventually, or a kid like that a threat, you may as well announce that he is the one we've all been waiting for. And as he's saying that, we get a quick flashback to Roger saying, eventually someone that can surpass us will be born. We were just too early. And then we get to see Rayleigh and Crocus, which is pretty cool. And we see Scopper in the current time, but we don't see young Scopper. Actually, I guess we're seeing old everybody. We see an old Scopper, an old Rayleigh, and an old Crocus, who are all very clearly all still fighting to make their captain's dream come true. And they still believe in what he's saying. Also, quick side note, guys. The egg is still on the ship when they're leaving Laugh Tale, and he's saying this. Just for note, because I still want to know what the heck that egg is. But it's pretty obvious. This is why Whitebeard stood up for Luffy. This is why Shanks stood up for Luffy, right? It's like they could almost tell that this was the guy. And Shanks could tell first. But then as soon as it became a problem, and he started picking up a name, right? And the straw hat that Shanks put on him really helped early on for all of the other old Roger pirates to be able to notice and realize that that's the person that we're putting the bet on, right? Maybe that's our guy. So this is why everybody's done everything they have from the old Roger days to help Luffy. It's very clear to them that Roger knew how the history of the world, and that this was the person Roger was waiting for. So they're all doing what they can to make that happen, for Roger's dream to come true. Emu responds, well, that's a valid point. We are hasty and foolish. Perhaps we simply mistook numerous coincidences for fate. Let's just put an end to this. He instantly he does his stigma thing. He begins to make one of those flames pop up above Luffy. Right then, Scopper notices it at the exact same time. And he pretty much just teleports. Actually, I was going to say he teleports over to Luffy, but he doesn't. He jumps high into the air, and he apologizes to the treasure tree Adam. I don't want to devour you, but... And then he complains about his old body and his joints and how much he's in pain trying to do this. And he's pulling a massive amount of Haki around him. We see the Conqueror's Haki lightning forming around him. And then right in that moment, when Emu goes to use his stigma, Scopper uses an attack called Kamudo 8000 / Grim Throng. And we just see him instantly bring down a ton of Haki lightning that looks like that itself cuts up Treasure Tree Adam before his slashes even come down. And Emu responds, old as thou art still the Pirate King's crew. Scopper says, is that what you think? And then we just see Emu's attack response, which is just saying Honbami again, which is the same sword he had already pulled out. So he's using that. If you look pretty closely, it does look like we can see actually in this panel what happens next. We see the spirit that seemed to be coming off of the sword Honbami. Off of Scopper's left shoulder, and then we see next in the next panel, Scopper. There's a bunch of the parts of Treasure Tree Adam, big part of the branch, just falling down to the lower world into the realm of the dead. And then I believe it's on top of one of those pieces is where we now see Scopper at the very end of the chapter, laying there with his arm cut off. So the whatever attack Emu used, or however the attack worked from Honbami, it was that spirit thing that was on the sword seems to have flown up to Scopper, and it accessed the blade, and it just cut his arm right off. Which is probably why his attack didn't succeed, and why he ended up losing. On top of maybe it's just that Emu is far too strong for an old Scopper to be able to handle in any regard. Did put up a really good fight, though. This was a really cool chapter. That is where the chapter ends. We just get everybody like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And people saying, was that Luffy? No, that was somebody else. And then we see Scopper on the ground, and Luffy sees Scopper down on the ground and just says, what? Old man. Like, yeah, he's cooked. And that's just it. That's the end of 1190. So it's a good chapter. A lot of action, like I said, just pretty much all action, really, really cool. I did just notice Scopper is low-key wearing the same sunflower shirt that Luffy was wearing on Dressrosa, is how it looks. Pretty funny. But really, really good chapter. I mean, it was really cool getting to see Scopper and Emu throw down, getting to see a very short little flashback cuts of when Gold Roger became the king of the pirates and things that he said to his crew, stuff that Emu was saying then. And honestly, the speech from Scopper to Luffy was great. I mean, really awesome. Scopper does hold up, though. Makes me really question if Rayleigh can do this same level of strength still. Because he was having issues, well, maybe not issues, but he was holding off Kizaru. But he wasn't clashing with Emu, right? So, big difference in those two. Really good chapter, though. I'm looking forward to the next chapter. It doesn't say we're on break, but I thought I heard we might be on a jump break this coming week. So if we don't get another chapter, then I'll try to get something else out in the meantime. But either way, guys, I'm trying to keep these chapter reviews a lot shorter, simpler, more just compact. Probably a lot better for the watching for you guys than me just rattling on about bullshit. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're still around, go ahead and leave a like down below. Comment. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen next. Scopper's not going to die, I'd like to think. But Luffy's also torn up, and at this point, I don't think there's anybody on Elbaf who can do anything about Emu, so we need to hope that his time limit's running out, like now, like ASAP, or we're in trouble. So, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll be getting out a Hunter x Hunter chapter review probably tomorrow or Monday. So, I hope you guys have a good one. Later. Bye.